Now, I'm not saying he's the best written, but he is kind of the coolest. Thank you to our final patrons, Strawbones, Weather4765, Midnight Gem Lord, Sean, and Artgoon. And a very big thank you to our $25 patron, Alex Ice Rose. Now, we're having this breakdown / discussion on how Tarmiel is kind of the best Archangel. Please don't forget to leave your own thoughts on Tarmiel in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, when you hit that little notification bell to miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do a Patreon down below. You support as low as $1 $1 a month. Links to videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, let's hop into the discussion. What's up, guys? I'm here, and here we are to talk about Tarmiel, the Ocean, aka Tarmiel, the GOAT. Because he's low-key kind of the best Archangel. And hear me out. I can already hear it. I know it. You guys are not subtle. I see you outside my window right now glaring at me for even thinking of recording this video. And now that I'm recording it, lower that thing down. You MAEL fans, back away. Back away. I have you in my sights and I have 20 men trained on you. And they will run a train on you. So you better watch out. You MAEL fans. Hear me out. I will wholeheartedly admit, on a writing front, Tarmiel, Sariel, and Ludishel, if you combine them together, would still not come even remotely close to MAEL. MAEL's writing, bonkers, through the roof, insane. Like, legitimately, if I put aside my biases, MAEL as a character most likely has the best writing in the entire verse. I'm not afraid to admit that. It is just a flat-out truth. Bro's writing is buku bonkers. Like, trust me, I know. However, I need y'all to hear me out. Tarmiel, he's kind of cooler, though. Now, here's the thing, right? I think if I'm talking about Tarmiel, once again, as a character, he's still kind of goated. But the first thing I really want to talk about is the power set. Notably, the graces, while really, really cool, are kind of basic. Like, when you really think about it, when you really sit down and talk about, like, the extension of what the graces are, they are powers over parts of the world. Power over light, power over the sun, power over wind, power over ocean, or water in general. And thusly, the only part of the world that's really missing is Earth. But the reason they don't have that is because we have the Giant Clan. So, reasonably, all the powers are extensions of natural elements. And I'll be real with you. The main reason I say the other Archangel's powers, especially in comparison to Tarmiel's, are a little bit underwhelming is because it feels like Nakaba didn't really stretch them at all. What is Ludishel's ability? What is his grace? Flash. What does it allow him to do? Just think of it straight out, off the top of your head. If you just heard the grace flash and you were making a power set for it, what abilities would you give it? You would give it light control, and you would give it speed. That's about it. And that's all Nakaba gives Flash. Like, that's it. There's nothing else he gives Flash. You get better light control, and you get better speed. And the goddesses already innately have light control, so Flash is legit just an amp to an already existing power. Flash is kind of boring, kind of basic. Like, Ludishel uses it really, really well, don't get me wrong. He's definitely mastered the grace, and with his level of speed, he's out here casually, like, basically teleporting against high-level fighters. But still, it feels like Flash barely got any exploration. It feels like it didn't have anything complex to it, anything that really made it unique. A character can imitate, if not flat out beat Flash by just being physically stronger than Ludishel. Flash, inherently, isn't really that special. And that's kind of booty meat. Let's move on to the next one. Tornado. It's neat, don't get me wrong. But what powers do you think of when you immediately hear tornado? Wind. Spinning wind around, maybe making a barrier or two, and like gigantic wind gusts. Tornadoes, if you will. Yeah, you know, that's all Sariel gets too. Nothing extra, nothing fancy. He gets a wind barrier and he can make gusts of wind and tornadoes. I'm not saying you can really go too much deeper with the wind power. It's such a basic ability, but even still, all Sariel is a more powerful Hauser and Elaine. And even then, some of the things Elaine does with her wind magic, when she has her wings out, kind of seems more bonkers than what Sariel does, which is crazy. Even though I know Sariel is like 10 times stronger, don't get me wrong, In terms of utility of wind, it's a lot less interesting than it hypothetically could be. You could have Sariel out here tearing people out from the inside with wind, taking their air away, drying their skin out by manipulating the temperatures of the wind. Like, you could make the power of tornado way more interesting. Hey, you can make it a bootleg telekinesis. You never get any super deep, crazy extensions of wind. And due to this, it just feels a bit underwhelming. And don't get me wrong, it's not like the characters have that much screen time to really exist. They don't get to use their graces properly until over halfway through the story. Like, it's literally post 10 Commandments fight, which I would say is the halfway point of Seven Deadly Sins. And even then, the opponents they go up against are so much more powerful than them, for the most part, that they don't necessarily get the chance to show off that well. But still, in the limited time that they had, you could have done at least a little bit more. There's that tiny bit of extra sauce to really make a grace like Tornado and a grace like Flash stand out. Though I will admit, don't get me wrong, Flash is definitely hard to elaborate on. There are some things you could do. You could do like light phasing, you could do light skipping, you could do like illusions and perception manipulation. There's a whole ton of stuff you could technically do with Flash, but I think I'll save like expanding on the graces for their own video. But with that being the case, Tornado's also a bit underwhelming. And let's move to the most popular of the graces by far. I saw that poll. All you Sun users. Yeah, Sun is the most, simultaneously the most popular and arguably most expanded on grace for the most part. Yet at the same time, it also doesn't necessarily provide much more than you would think it would. Especially considering it has two separate users who use it very differently. It's kind of just the same thing. And ironically enough, with MAEL, it's even less interesting than it is with Escanor. Sure, the main unique part of Sun is that you grow with it. As the sun rises, as the earth spins relative to the sun, your power peaks and grows until you achieve the pinnacle of power known as the One. And then your power decreases. I do get it. That is a very good power. That is a very interesting handicap for a very strong power. And I think the One is very, very cool. But in terms of Sun abilities, what do you think of when you hear Sun? A big old ball of fire. What do Escanor and MAEL both use Sun for? To make big old balls of fire. Like, legit, that's it. That is it. And once again, I understand. Actually, not necessarily too much, but I can understand once again a bit more. Escanor is not introduced until post first 100 chapters of the series. A whole third of the series is gone before you even get introduced to Sunshine. Then wombo combo that with the fact that Escanor gets like what? 6 fights that he's allowed in, and MAEL gets 1. MAEL with Sunshine. I mean, technically 2 if you include the baby Endura, but MAEL gets 1 fight to show off his Sunshine Grace, and it's when he's in the afternoon and suppressing himself against Zeldris. Meaning, and also Zeldris just negates the whole magic side of his kit too. So he's really just done in. His opponents don't allow him to show it off, and Escanor much more uses the raw power and physicality of Sunshine, and obviously Cruel Sun. But that's it. That is it. Nothing interesting is done with the Sun concept. And of course, once again, I can kind of see why. 1, because of limited time, and 2, because the Sun is arguably the most difficult to expand on, even more than Flash. Mainly because, like, what do you think of when you think of the Sun? I don't blame people for just thinking of a big old ball of fire. I think it would have been interesting to bring back some gravity manipulation with it, though. Like, actually give these characters more mass, and, like, make them hit harder for reasons not just because they're physically stronger, but because of the fact that they are literally the Sun. They are literally a gigantic floating star. They have implications on gravity. They can use different types of like nuclear fusion for Dura negation. You could go really fancy with it, but of course it's much more out of the general wheelhouse. You have to get a lot more complicated with Sun. And that's where Tarmiel comes in, and it's just stupid cool. Like, no reason, bro. It's just stupid dummy cool with Ocean. Because the thing is, Ocean is so neat because it took something that I just wasn't expecting. It really properly merged Tarmiel and the Grace. Because another thing is all the other Graces aren't necessarily all too merged with their respective wielder. They're always considered external power-ups, and it's natural, right? They are literally external power-ups, and none of the Graces are natural to their respective Archangels, but it leads to a very disconnected feeling. Like, Yeah, MAEL wields sun. MAEL is not really the sun. Yeah, Ludishel wields Flash, but he's not really the Flash. He's not Barry Allen, Jay Garrick, or Wally West. He's really just stuck out of luck. And with Sariel too. Sariel wields Tornado, but he isn't really the Tornado. Meanwhile, Tarmiel seems to be the best embodiment of his grace. Quite literally, the ability to liquefy oneself to avoid attacks and damage is so cool. It's so and it's so out there. Like when I think ocean, if someone were to tell me you have power to control water, I would never, it would literally be out of left field. You would have to sucker punch me in the mouth to think, oh yeah, you can now liquefy yourself. You literally are water. You don't just get the ability to control it, you straight up become it. And then you can dodge, weave, absorb different attacks, mold your body with the water you control. That is crazy. And admittedly, that's the main thing, right? Because once again, Ocean does not get any screen time. Tarmiel gets introduced. It's crazy. I'm looking at the wiki page right now. Apparently, Ocean gets introduced in the manga around chapter 263. You know when Tarmiel perishes? Not 30 chapters. He's not around by the time of the 290s. So he perishes pretty much in the same volume he's introduced, which is really bonkers to think about, especially considering we do have a flashback where he does fight, but ironically enough, he doesn't use his grace at all there. I'm trying to think back, and you know what, I'll even double check right now. But yeah, in his original fight, where we are directly introduced to Tarmiel in his true body, in his prime state, he barely even, if at all, uses Ocean. The only way I could see he even uses Ocean in that fight is saying, which is another merging of why I like Tarmiel, because he's so much intertwined with his grace, is that when Derriere pounds his face in, he just molds right back into shape, as if he were made of water and consistently just reforming his own physical body. But even then, I think that's me gassing it. I just think Nakaba didn't know what to do with him at the time, and thus they didn't introduce it yet. That's why we see Grace, or not Grace in general, but we see the Grace used so sparingly. But even still, in its short sparing use, we get really cool stuff out of it. The liquefying effect, the ability to just turn oneself into water, really, really cool. Using water, not to just drown people, not to just freeze them, but literally forming water into direct weapons, and using things like piercing water pillar, where he just tears through you, literally spears you with a massive pillar of water. Really, really cool. I don't know. Once again, I guess water being formed into weapons is something that is more common than just liquefying, being water yourself. But at the same time, it's usually water infused with ice. Ice is the thing. I'm mainly thinking of Avatar The Last Airbender here, where if a waterbender doesn't want to do anything other than soak you or drown you, they will harden the water into ice. And then bada bing, bada boom, that's how they'll do extreme damage to you. Meanwhile, with Tarmiel, no, he just legit molds the water to such a pinpoint point that he can tear through you. And obviously, the coolest application of his grace literally is the God's Domain. Legitimately, that alone is so metal. And I get it, it's a combo between him and Sariel, so it's not in 100% Tarmiel's thing, but still, the ability to just drop a whole ocean on somebody by literally just hitting them. You can just get one tapped and you're in the ocean. Not the ocean, a ocean that Tarmiel just makes. It is so cool. It is such a great expansion. And it's so metal, despite it being water. The fact that you can just open up. Tarmiel really just says, fine, you know what? I'm done with you. Good game, drown. And he just drops you in a whole ocean in a separate space. That is so unbelievably metal. That's why he's so cool. You don't see people like Ludishel doing that. When has Ludishel ever opened a literal domain expansion? Never. Not on screen. When has MAEL done that? Sure, he may hit you with the greatest sun, but the sun ain't that great if it ain't its own domain. MAEL ain't opening up a separate space to drop you in there. But Tarmiel will drown you in his own ocean, and that's metal. And here's the thing, right? Tarmiel isn't the coolest for just his grace integration, which I think is really, really good. And ironically enough, I was going to get off the grace integration, but I want to get into a little bit more. I love how he really feels like the ocean. Wild, chaotic, calm, caring, playful, but at the same time extremely malicious. He once again fully embodies his grace. Unlike the other archangels, I don't know. When I think of light, I don't necessarily think of Ludishel, or vice versa. When I think of the sun, I mean, I can kind of think of MAEL, like MAEL's calming, guiding light, but at the same time, on a hot day, it can be extremely dangerous and damaging. So, I can give sun to MAEL. What about Sariel implies anything about wind? Nothing. I don't know. Like, nothing about Sariel gives me tornado vibes. Not even, like... Yeah, I just don't see any of that. So, MAEL and Tarmiel are the only two archangels to fully embody their grace, even personality-wise. And I love that. That's really, really good. That's an extra point for Tarmiel on the cool factor. He is literally his grace personified. He is the ocean. The line between the two can't really be crossed that easily because they are so well intermingled. And top that off with the fact that he has just some of the coolest fight scenes. Like, legitimately, him getting mollywopped by Deity, getting slammed, body bagged, smacked up, whatever you want to say. Bro literally ate a 54 hit wombo combo with no fries and a drink. Because he was the drink. And what did he do? After getting all his heads mangled and crushed up and smacked together, bro went, oh, did you willikers, That was kind of rough. I look what you did there. Look what you did there, Commandment. You still fought her, though. And then proceeds to just completely negate 54 hits of damage. And remember, Deity ain't no, like, wombo combo you once. No, she hit him 54 times. 200,000 pounds times 54 is what Sariel was hit with. And he laughed it off. Galland, my goat, he proceeded to bisect Tarmiel. Straight up split him down the middle. And you know what Tarmiel, the goat, did? He was like, I bet. Popped himself right back together. Like, legitimately, Tarmiel is just so cool. That's the thing. It's not like he's objectively the best at anything. He's not the strongest. He's not the fastest. His grace arguably isn't the best. And it's not like he really is the best character in the Four Archangels either, but he's just so stupidly cool. Another thing that's stupidly cool about him, his gosh darn design. Now, I'm not clowning on any of the Archangels' designs. Once again, Nakaba is an amazing character designer. Like, some of the most iconic designs from the modern day. Meliodas, Escanor, Bond. Diane's kind of generic. But King, like, there's so many good designs. Look at the whole Ten Commandments cast. Galland, crazy. Melascula, crazy. Like, so many good characters. But the thing about the Archangels is that for the most part, they're kind of just guys being dudes. Dudes being guys. Like, when I hear Archangel, I kind of expect this otherworldly being. Like, nigh on a being beyond comprehension. Like, straight up a power and ability, someone of such valor and strength that they seem beyond this world. Sure, you can definitely still have the humanoid factor. I'm not saying go, like, biblically accurate archangels or stuff like that, because I think they're literally just, like, floating eyes. I think that'd be creepy. But still, even with that being the case, Nakaba, with Tarmiel's design, goes with such an interesting and unique take in comparison to his contemporaries. MAEL is just a buff dude. I hate to say it. Once again, I love MAEL. Not on a scaling front, but I love MAEL. But all he is just a buff dude. Sariel is literally just a kid with wings. That's it. That's it. There's no special traits about him. He has nothing unique other than the wings. But the wings are just common. They're species-wide. Nothing stands out about Sariel. You could literally take off the wings and take away the Triskelion, and I would not be able to tell him from a background character. That's how generic and basic his design is. Ludishel, he has like bonus points because of the long flowing black hair and the constantly closed eyes, which occasionally open, but even still kind of generic. Once again, take away the wings, the massive, majestic wings. I know that's a major part of the Archangel's design, but still, take away the wings, and it's pretty hard to buy. Why do you think Estarossa could pass so well as a demon? Like, no one questioned it. It's because bro literally just looked like one. He just looked like a dude. A guy being dudes. That's all MAEL looked like. All he needed was a haircut and losing his wings, and suddenly he was indistinguishable. But Tarmiel's design is that perfect balance between, like, off-putting, insanely creepy, and weird, and almost a little bit of same face syndrome. Like, the young head looks directly like Hauser, but even still, it has that perfect balance of that weird off-puttingness that you would get from, like, a higher creature. Like, a three-headed man of multiple ages with sharp fangs and a widespread mouth in the middle with dark sclera. Like, that kind of design sticks. It stands out. Like, it really fits the title of Archangel. Heck, it fits the title of Goddess. Like, this external being, close to humanity, So much to the point where you could kind of see humans being made in Tarmiel's image, like just the one head, the young, the middle-aged, and the old. But at the same time, it's just off-putting enough that you get this really hard to manage cool factor because you're intrigued. This design feels unnatural, but at the same time, it's balanced out, ironically enough, by the 6 wings that he has. And notably, he's the only Archangel with 6 wings. Like, I think he has the most amount of wings in the series outside the Supreme Deity on a constant. Like, all the other Archangels have 4. Let me double check Sariel real quick. Yeah, Sariel has 4, Ludishel has 4, MAEL has 4, heck, even the goddess Elizabeth has only 4 wings. Meanwhile, Sariel's out here repping the big 6. The big 6 in, I mean, you know Sariel's packing. He got 3 heads worth, like legitimately 3 heads worth of length. And you know he got like different textures to it. I'm sorry, but regardless, even with that being the case, it adds this really nice extra design. He even feels different from his contemporaries. The fact that Brody straight up looks different, straight up is arguably the most uniquely designed goddess, because every other goddess is just a human with wings. A big human with wings. The closest one that has a more unique design is that gigantic one that Meliodas fought. But still, unlike the Demon Clan, which has a lot of character design diversity, the Human Clan has a lot of character diversity, but they're still just guys being dudes. And the Giants are just big guys being dudes, except for Droll, who was born different, I suppose. And Fairies are mostly just guys being dudes, but they're usually smaller. Still, Tarmiel stands out as a design that is memorable on sight. You look at Tarmiel and you will not forget him. I remember Brody low-key traumatized me when he first appeared in the manga. I was like, what? Why does he have three head? Why does the one have sharp teeth? Why does the other one look like Hauser? And why is the third one old? Like, legitimately. And the fact is that he can use all magics from the other heads too. The other heads aren't just decorative. Sure, it's the main one that speaks the most often. Like, I don't think we ever see the young head or the old head actually speak, unless it's for a magical spell. But the fact that they can use magical spells, the fact that the young head can just pull out arc on you, crazy, bonkers. It's a good use of the design too. It's not just a design aesthetic where you're like, oh, Nakaba went out of his way to give Tarmiel 3 heads, so Tarmiel was more memorable and noticeable, but also they have utility. There's a reason they exist. It's really, once again, I know I sound like this is my proper 3rd grade super crazy logic coming out, but it's just really, really cool. Everything about Tarmiel is just really, really cool. From his design to how he is incorporated with his grace to his grace itself, everything about it is just dope. Brody's just real cool compares to his contemporaries. And it's not like his contemporaries are bad characters, right? You know, I've been low-key clowning on them in this video. I've been calling their designs basic, the applications of their grace is basic, some of their characters basic, but even still, the Archangels are still a really cool group. I'm definitely going to talk about them in depth more often. Or not more often, but in the future. But still, Tarmiel has that extra bit of special sauce. It feels like if I had to think who Nakaba sat down and said, I'm going to go out of my way to really design a memorable character, it feels like outside of MAEL, obviously, because obviously MAEL probably got the most design time and like thought from Nakaba, Tarmiel got it. He got it on all fronts. Nakaba stretched the limits of his grace, really went out of his way to make Ocean more interesting than it had to be. Nakaba stretched his design. He could have just easily made Tarmiel one of the 3 heads. He could have given him the 4 wings that were standard. He could have done everything regular with Tarmiel, but he didn't. He went out of his way to give him 3 separate heads, all of different ages, by the way, give them special magical utility and just utility in general, and top that off with his 6-wing design with all small wings. It is the most unique design out of the 4 Archangels and arguably out of the Goddess Clan itself. It's the closest to what you would think of when you hear of angels, at least to me, like when I think of accurate angels. And that's, once again, just really, really cool. It's not like Nakaba did much with him. In terms of, once again, by the time he appears in the series, he's in there for like 80 chapters, less than a third of the series. He really is like a blink and you miss it kind of character. When you hear discussion about Seven Deadly Sins characters, you don't hear discussion about Tarmiel. You just don't. He has a really nice character arc that I'll talk about in a, or not, kind of character arc, kind of character story. It's a little bit mixed, but I'll talk about that in its own video. But when you're hearing discussion about characters on multiple fronts, from magics to designs to character itself, you never hear Tarmiel being brought up. No one talks about Tarmiel because he's not MAEL, And he's also not Ludishel, and he's also not Elizabeth, and he's also not Meliodas, and he's also not any of the titular characters or anything like that. He's not even one of the humans that had a whole season to himself to really set in and establish himself. He's just a cool guy being a dude with 3 heads, 2 arms, 2 legs, and 18-inch... I'm sorry, but regardless, I think it's really, really cool. I think he's a really neat character who... a part of me... Because reasonably, he is set up to come back. Nakaba does establish that the Archangels are technically, they're DEAD, but not really. They're in the middle of reincarnating. None of them lost their grace. They all perished with their graces, and due to the graces giving them pseudo-immortality, they will respawn. So I'm very intrigued to see them respawn eventually. When... I'm not exactly sure where I want him to show up in Four Knights, but I would like Tarmiel to show up in really, maybe, part of me is very mixed. Part of me wants Tarmiel back so I can see more of his grace in action and hypothetically maybe giving his grace up to other characters. You know, we have 4 knights, 4 archangels. It'd be kind of neat. We already have one of the graces possessed in one of the 4 knights, so wouldn't it be cool if we got the other 3? Nah, I don't think that would ever happen. But I think Tarmiel could be a really cool addition to the cast. He could bring a whole lot about, once again, goddess lore, goddess history to people like Tristan, to people like the modern cast. I think he could do really, really good. And he already has done really, really good, and he's really, really cool as a character. However, that's what I think. Please tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you guys for watching. Please do like, share, comment, and subscribe. It makes it a little notification so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a page down below. You support as low as $1 down a month. Links to videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off.